Hello, this is Neil Baum from New Orleans, and I want to talk to you about a incredible leader by the name of Ernest Shackleton and what are his principles of leadership and how they apply to our practices. Ernest Shackleton is considered one of the greatest leaders of the 20th century as he attempted to cross Antarctica with a crew of 27 in 1915. However, his boat became frozen in an ice pack and he had to exist and survive on the ice floe for 2 years, living on penguins and seals. However, he was able to save his entire crew of 27 men, and his examples of leadership apply to many areas, including healthcare and medicine. This video will discuss Shackleton's principles of leadership, which has become a case study at the Harvard Business School. And this is something that is studied by young businessmen and women as examples of exemplary leadership. Shackleton had to shift very quickly from exploration of Antarctica to crisis management. He had to do this very quickly. And the take-home message is that in healthcare, we often have to shift and change our goals very quickly in order to take good care of patients. An example being the management of testis tumors, which several decades ago was nearly fatal and now is 95% curable with surgery, radiation, and chemotherapy. This also applies to business. If you have a practice that is still using paper charts and ledger cards, you're probably a bit out of date, and patients may question if you are clinically up to date if you're still using antiquated methods of running your practice. Shackleton's message applies to healthcare because we have to adapt and change very quickly. Small group practices are now joining large group practices, and doctors today are commonly employed by hospitals, and as a result, we are losing our autonomy. Shackleton set the example by having methods to maintain the morale of his staff and his crew. An example being he kept strict routine for meals, assigning everyone a job to do at the time of meals, insisted that the men arrive on time for breakfast, lunch, and dinner. He was encouraging the men to socialize after the meals. He also devised games for them to play. This is an example of a game after dinner where he set up a soccer field on the ice and was a method for improving the morale of his crew. So oftentimes morale in an office deteriorates. Examples being when an employee or employees are absent from work. This creates extra work for their remaining staff, and it can result in deterioration of morale. The goal is to recognize that there is a problem and offer rewards and compliments if everybody digs in and picks up the slack so that the patients don't experience a deterioration of services by the lack of a full-time staff. An example in my practice where 2 employees were absent can result in considerable stress on the remaining staff. At the end of the week, I hired a massage therapist to give each employee a 15-minute massage. It was just a simple, inexpensive way of saying thank you for going the extra mile and making sure that the patient experience had not deteriorated because of a lack of staff. Shackleton was known for setting an example. When the boat became frozen in the ice pack and cracked the ship and took on water, and he had to abandon the ship, he decided that all non-essential items had to be left behind. He set an example. He called a meeting of the entire crew. He took off his gold watch and threw it into the sea, demonstrating that nothing was too small or too important that had to be taken as they navigated on the ice floes to safety. An example in healthcare of setting the example, the doctor at the top of the feeding chain in the practice has to set the example. The doctor has to arrive on time if they expect the staff and the patients to do the same thing. A doctor who is chronically late 20 or 30 minutes to start the day is going to wreak havoc on the schedule. If you want the patients and your staff to be on time, the doctor also has to be on time. Shackleton made a point of not only hiring for the competence and skills of his staff, but also for their character. Shackleton posted an ad in a London newspaper, and the ad stated men wanted for a hazardous journey with small wages, be very cold, long months of complete darkness, constant danger. They may not return safely, and honor and recognition would only be achieved in case of success. That simple ad had 5,000 responses, including 3 from young, adventurous women. An example in my practice of finding an exemplary employees, I had dinner with my family. A waitress took a complicated order for the 6 people in our party, and she did not write anything down and delivered the food accurately to everyone at the table. She demonstrated her ability to multitask. I asked her what her plans were for the future. She said she was a recent college graduate, wanted to get into pharmaceutical sales. I recommended she send me her resume. She had a follow-up interview. I hired her, and she worked for 2 years in the practice, and she learned all the details of managing patient care, insurance, coding, procedures, managing difficult patients, and difficulty managing the staff. She knew a great deal about the mindset of physicians and a medical practice. She easily got a job with a medical device company and became the company's top performer in a very short period of time. Shackleton's take-home message on hiring, he said, look for the character of the people you're going to hire as part of your team, as well as for their skills. The take-home message is you can't teach employees to be nice. However, you can always train them to perform most of the tasks that needed to be performed in a urologic office. Bottom line is that Shackleton had strategies that could be used in a urologic practice when we face crises, levels of turbulence as COVID-19 has exemplified in causing havoc in many medical practices, including the ambiguity and uncertainty of the future of medical healthcare in the United States. I highly recommend reading the Shackleton's biography called The Endurance. This is a terrific read and will also be recommended for anyone who has or is in a leadership capacity. Well, I hope you have enjoyed this brief video on Shackleton and leadership. If you would like a copy of the slide deck and or the white paper on Shackleton, kindly contact me at the email address shown on the last slide, and I would be happy to share one or both with you. Thank you.